It gives me great pleasure to welcome Chef Jose Garces to the show today. Chef holds many titles: friend, father, food and drink lover, entrepreneur, James Beard Award winner, author, and Iron Chef. Chef grew up in the kitchen, cooking alongside his mother and father in Chicago, where he grew up. He knew at some point he needed to flex his creativity, so enrolled in Culinary School. After graduation, Chef moved to New York, where he started his career as a line cook at the Rainbow Room at Rockefeller Plaza. He opened his first restaurant in Philadelphia in 2005. And in 2009, like he had nothing else to do, Chef competed and won the Food Network series Next Iron Chef. Since then, he has emerged as one of the nation's leading chefs, owning and operating over a dozen restaurants, an event and catering division, and a nonprofit organization. And last year, President Biden appointed Jose to serve as co-chair of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Chef, welcome to Here for Good.
Wow, that's what an intro. I hope I can match up to that introduction with my words coming up here, but thank you so much for having me.
Listen, I have no doubt. You know, you and I had dinner a couple of weeks ago, and I know I spent several hours just peppering you about food, about cooking, about drinking, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that to you. Do you ever get tired of talking about food and cooking?
No, never. You know what, Dennis? It's I wake up thinking about it. I'm so passionate about it because I think there's just so many ways in which food is medicine, brings people together, food culturally it represents so much that it's such a wide array of content, let's say, that I just love it, and I'm so, 30 years into it, I'm more passionate than ever about it, and I'm excited about where it could take us in the future.
You talked about culturally. Let's start by going back to Chicago, where you grew up. You have mentioned to me several times, you learned to cook alongside of your mother and father, who you say were both great cooks, especially in preparing traditional Latin dishes. But you were initially hesitant about embracing your Ecuadorian heritage. Talk to me a little bit about that and how that sort of shaped you as a chef.
Sure. So, I think growing up, my parents both were immigrants from Ecuador in the late 1960s. We had this cultural, and our home environment was still, they wanted to maintain our cultural roots through food and obviously through other parts of our culture, but they were also assimilating to being Americans and kind of adjusting to the American way of life. And we, as kids, were kind of in the same boat with them. And so Chicago's an interesting place for sure in terms of it's a cultural melting pot. I grew up in a Irish, Italian, Mexican, Polish neighborhood. All different walks of life were around me. And so, at one point, I think I became Joe Garces, not Jose Garces. I'm like, what? Everyone's calling me Joe over here. So, I think at a certain point in my career, though, I realized that I had to really, pick a niche of food to call my own, right? And really to hone in on. And so Latin food became, was certainly my calling, just based on my roots and my passion for it, because I was French classically trained. I did go cook in Spain and was around many different American restaurants throughout my career. But I realized if I was going to do this for a long time, it had to be through my culinary roots. And that made all the sense in the world.
So you grew up in the kitchen at home. Then you go off to college where you start out taking the business courses, but was there a part of you that always knew you wanted to be a chef, or was there something that attracted you to this culinary world besides food?
Yeah. So, I was an athlete in high school. I wrestled, I played football. There was something around the discipline that those sports teams, kind of the athletic endeavors, taught me, which was, discipline, teamwork, cooperation, everyone coming together to do something good. And so when I went to undergrad and didn't really feel that, and I got to culinary school and I saw the uniforms, the white tall hats, the crisp uniforms, and kind of the brigade style system, that really said it, because I was, that's a little wild and unruly during those years. Right?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So, I sensed that I needed that, but to be honest, I didn't. I was looking for structure, and I knew I enjoyed food, and I certainly loved to eat it, and was passionate about it, but I didn't know I had a talent or skill. I was really looking for a vocation, a trade, something that I could really take and use my hands and go out and earn a living, right? At that time, I got to school, and then our instructors started giving us trays of products and ingredients, and they were like, okay, guys, create a 3-course meal around these ingredients. And the competition started with my other classmates and teammates. And during that time, it was a discovery period. Wow, I can actually do this. I can excel. Oh, I'm thinking about it all the time, and it became a passion. So it was a discovery for me, and one that I'm really glad happened for me.
Culinary school, or the path that you took, is it something that you would recommend to others that eventually would have, goals of becoming a chef or owning a restaurant?
Yeah, I think it was a really, culinary school is a great foundation for me in terms of just, call it the business side of it, the technical side of it, kind of also exposure to the varying different businesses that are in the field, whether it was catering, cruise lines, hotels, restaurants, fast casual. The industry is pretty large. So I think that I gained all that experience and kind of learning that through school. And I would definitely recommend it. I think it's also one of the things that I learned early on, that it's a physical job. It becomes especially initially, it's very physically demanding. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be aware of that. So
but isn't it, Jose, isn't it a way of life? I've heard that the restaurant business, it's not for the faint of heart. Is it truly as difficult as many of us think it is?
If you're passionate about it, like anything else, it's not difficult. There's long hours. It's demanding. You have to be willing to sacrifice in the restaurant business some holidays, and there is some of that. I mean, that definitely, and that can be difficult, right? But I think that if you're, for me, my sweet spot in all of this is serving guests, delicious meals, right? That's something about that really makes me happy on the inside.
And I got to tell you, being the recipient of that, you do it quite well.
Thank you. No, thank you very much for that, Dennis. And and I guess it's a passion, and you have to have it. And if you have it, then you'll succeed. But if you feel like it's laborious, or it's long, and if you have that kind of mindset, well, it's probably not going to work. It's probably going to be difficult. Yeah.
So by 2009, you were pretty established in your career. You had opened not just one, but a handful of restaurants across, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York. Suddenly, you're competing on the Food Network series Next Iron Chef. What was that experience like? How did it come about? What were you thinking?
It started in 2007, actually. I was auditioning for the first season of Next Iron Chef, and I didn't make the cut, but I was invited to come and compete just on the regular show. So I competed. I beat Bobby Flay, battled Melon. You can look it up on YouTube and check it out. It was a pretty epic Melon battle. And then in 2009, I was brought back to audition, and I made the cut to be a cast member on the show. And there was 9 other chefs, nationally known chefs, that were competing. We were all sequestered for over a month. So, no communication outside of what we were doing. And it was so challenging and exhilarating to be put into this environment. And really, at the end of the day, to really just show your natural cooking ability and what you could do. And I'll give you just a short segment from the show, which there was a battle, this battle of Indian cuisine, and there was a double elimination battle. It was like a quarterfinal battle. So the winners went to Tokyo for the semifinals and then ultimately New York for the final. So I was filming that battle, and during the battle, I cut my finger pretty badly. It was one of those cuts that just wouldn't stop. The medics came, they had to patch me up. Meanwhile, there's things on the stove, there's things in the oven. And I had never really cooked Indian cuisine. This was all based off my palate and sense of my taste of it. And I thought I was going home. I'm like, you know what? This is probably it for me.
You're done,
I'm
right?
sitting here.
Yeah.
I'm done. So somehow I end up pulling things together and serving my dishes, and I win the battle. Right? I win, and I go to Tokyo and become an Iron Chef. And that battle will always stick with me because, even when you think the chips are down, and you just have to keep plugging forward, and that still serves me today, because that was a moment where I really didn't think, I was going to be an Iron Chef, and I thought my dream of becoming an Iron Chef was over.
The phrase you use when you think your chips are down and you're out sort of leads me to the next thing I want to talk to you about, and that's your foundation. I mean, clearly you've had a stellar career as a chef, but one of the things I think connected you and I was the work that the Garces Foundation is doing. You've had the foundation, I think it was around 2012 that you started as a nonprofit organization, really to provide for the underserved migrant communities in and around Philadelphia. And when I say provide, you were really focused on health and educational services. Why was the foundation founded, or in particular, why the focus on the immigrant community?
I certainly noticed, and I worked with several folks in that community, like in the immigrant community, and it's just a fact. In the restaurant business, in hospitality, there are a lot of undocumented workers. They're there. They're doing jobs that most Americans honestly don't want to do, and they're part of our community. I started because there was a worker. He was a butcher for us, and one day he didn't show up to work, and he'd been with us for about 2 years. We went to knock on Felipe's door. Felipe, are you okay? Hey, chef, I'm not feeling great, but I don't want to go to the doctor because I'm fearful that I'm going to get deported.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, you know what? That's really unfortunate. And we helped Felipe get some healthcare and get checked. And unfortunately, he had stage 4 cancer, and passed just a few months after we saw him. And sadly, he could have, had he been treated or gotten attention, he might still be here today. And so that was the starting point for us, being in the restaurant industry in Philadelphia, in our community, knowing that these folks exist, they're here, they're doing. How can we at least provide some assistance around their, just a better way of life? And so we started with our health programs, which were just simply, and I have to give a lot of credit to my ex, who is still a wonder. We vice and co-chair the foundation. Name is Beatrice Garces. She had her dental office, and so at her dental office, she did dental screenings along with other, core basic healthcare screenings, diabetes, cholesterol, overall health check-ins. A group of great volunteer doctors who were there to provide information and assistance to this community to, go get further healthcare if they needed it. And then, we also realized in the restaurant community that these folks work really hard, and they're often blocked by their lack of language and their ability to ascend just through language. And so that was the other impetus, was just like, let's teach language literacy through job training for everyday living. And it's been great work.
There are pretty much four key programs that the foundation focus on. One in particular that caught my attention is the food pantry. I know you're familiar with the work that we do at Virtua around Eat Well, our food access program. And I know it's something that's a passion for you as you look to how do we address some of those vulnerable communities that have food insecurities, and how do we make sure that they are provided for. What's the foundation doing around food insecurity, and why? And if so, why is that important to you as well?
Yeah, well, this really was not one of our programs until the pandemic hit. And when it did hit, we realized that this community really had no recourse for food and many other like simple rights and benefits that most Americans get. And so we developed this food pantry program that really was centered around one, culturally appropriate food, right? So, in this case, we do rice, beans, tortillas, chicken, like things that just kind of like, if you get a box of food, you're gonna want to eat it, right? You're gonna want to maybe, be able to prepare it and enjoy it for your family. So our boxes feed one box feeds a family of four. We started in 2020, and we've continued it every Thursday. We have a co-partner, a food wholesale distributor, Giordano's here in Philadelphia, who've been great partners with us on that. And yeah, it's just, I think food and food insecurities to me is such a sad thing to see here in a country as wealthy as ours. And I'd love to, continue to, help as much as I can in terms of connecting those dots and teaching people. The one thing, I have a good talent in cooking, so I want to be able to like show people, and this is kind of the thing where like, hey, you can make a delicious, healthy meal that's culturally appropriate on a budget too, on a limited budget. So let's do that. And I'm excited about kind of digging into that a little bit further coming up here.
As a healthcare leader, I know that people's life circumstances have a profound impact on their health. What do you believe some of the greatest insecurities in the migrant community, particularly as you talk about the greater Philadelphia area, that you think the community face? Is it food insecurity? Or are there other insecurities that you think we need to focus on, or we need to really try and create change around?
It goes back to kind of our core programs and some advocacy as well. I mean, I think healthcare is still remains an issue for this community. There's no real path for them to have consistent healthcare across the broad spectrum of the community. And food, and I know that you do work in this, is it's tough to access fresh, delicious ingredients and wholesome ingredients,
and affordable.
And affordable, right? Yeah, it's all of those things. So I do feel like those continue to be issues that we need to just try to continue to overcome as civil leaders, as folks that have resources to really continue to help, and one step at a time.
You mentioned the role of leaders and the impact that we can have. Tell me about your role as co-chair of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. I mean, I would think that that's an incredible honor, but one that also allows you to bring attention at a national level and awareness on a national level of some of the importance of mental health as it pertains to physical fitness and nutrition. Tell me about that role a little bit.
Oh, Dennis, I'm so excited about this role, and I'm so honored to have been appointed and to serve, and also to gain access to a platform where we can hopefully make change. I'm on the nutrition subcommittee, which I'm excited about, and so being an Iron Chef, being a competitive cooking chef, I'm developing a platform around fitness and cooking, because as a competitive chef, you run for ingredients, you're bending, you're moving, you're using a lot of physical activity to create your dishes. You also need a lot of mental clarity in that moment. There's a lot going on in a cooking competition. It might be sharp knives, flames, cameras, who knows, a lot of things that happen. And so we're putting together an initiative with some of the major league teams, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, just to kind of help us get the messaging out there. And it's funny, it's still like in a raw draft form, but I've put together a kind of a bit of an obstacle course that might be like, hey, here's a cooking competition that involves some fitness. And obviously at the end of the day, it's about how do we get fit, gain some mental clarity, and also create a delicious, healthy meal. And so, yeah, that's the goal. See how it goes.
Well, talk to me a little bit about creativity and some of maybe your favorite dishes to create and what goes into that inspiration. I know we talked earlier about embracing your Latin heritage. I know you and I have talked and the influence that Spain has on your cooking. Tell me about, one, some of your favorite dishes to cook, but then more importantly, how you are inspired to come up with some of your recipes and how that Latin flavor finds its way into what you do.
Creativity often comes from inspiration. And I've been so fortunate in my career and my life to be able to travel. And I think that's a big part of kind of my key strategy is I'll go to, and I've been to, whether it's, you name it, Argentina, Tokyo, parts of Mexico, Europe, etc. I love, as a lover of food, I get inspired by what I'm exposed to. And so I usually have a strategy around, okay, I'm going to go to a local market. I'm going to go to, the best local, hangout. I'll see what the local folks are eating, and I'll take these experiences and really try to hone them into, whether it's our restaurants or different food platforms that I'm in. And those experiences will guide a lot of what my menus are and how they go forward. And so it's a lot of fun. Like we talked, like this past summer, I was in San Sebastian and Barcelona in Spain, looking to kind of reinvigorate those passions for Spanish food, because knowing that I have a new Spanish restaurant in the main line here in Radnor Wayne. And so, and that was great for me to bring back those ideas, bring it back to my team, get in the test kitchen, and just really start to work around traditions and elevating traditions or honoring them. Really, that's the beauty of food and kind of food culinary arts, is that most things have been done. Most things have already been created. If you can create something new, good for you. Go get it. But yeah, there's, in this day and age too, it's also, there's the challenge is also a bit on sustainability too. So it's, local ingredients, taking what's close to you and really making it, kind of weaving that into it as well. Local makers, local producers of goods in the area. And that's something I strongly advocate for as well.
Great. So I have two final questions. One, your thoughts about the restaurant or culinary industry right now, sort of post-pandemic, locally in Philadelphia, your area, and some of the other areas where you have restaurants. Do you see sort of a bounce back, or where we are from pre-pandemic in terms of the consumer appetite for going out, dining out, fine dining, what's the environment like from your perspective?
Oh, Dennis, you opened that up. That's a good one.
I'm trying to bring some of our dinner conversation into this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good one. So a lot to unpack with the restaurant business, and kind of being in it for the last 30 years, I have a good snapshot of kind of the way the trajectory that it's gone over the last last several years. So currently, let's talk about just dining in general, or the way people are consuming. Most folks have found new ways to consume through the pandemic, whether it's meal subscriptions or different avenues. Delivery of food, delivery has kind of taken off. Sadly, I think most people aren't cooking as much at home, which is good and bad, right? I'm a restaurateur. I want people to eat out, but I also think it's healthy for people to eat at home and that sort of thing. But there's labor has it was really odd. So during the pandemic, a lot of folks left the industry. You didn't want to with uncertainty and career uncertainty. And now we're getting a new batch of folks who want to, invest and move into it. So that's been great. Food costs and inflation. This is, I think, the biggest one for everybody. Is, publicly speaking, there's been a reckoning. Food costs, finally, after several years, food costs more to produce than it did, a year ago, 2 years ago. The same chicken entree can't be $18 to $22 that it's been for 30 years. It definitely, and so there is, I think, in this current state that we're in, a little bit of public reckoning around price. You go to restaurants now, you go to, whatever service you get, you're going to notice things are a little more expensive. And I think, from my opinion, for good reason. Wages have gone up. Again, I get, cost of living, and food costs has spiked as well. And so when those things happen, as an operator, as an owner, we call that like the middle of the page. And already the industry operates on pretty tight margins. When you spike those things up, there's only one way to go up, which is through higher menu pricing and that sort of thing. So to the consumer, so it's a function of, will the consumer accept those price increases overall, right? Will they start to behave differently? And I just think we're kind of in that moment. I think that fine dining, while there's a place for it, it certainly has decreased quite a bit. I'm more bullish from a business perspective on, really good quality, fast casual, quick serve options that are lower labor models, but give you great value for what you're paying for, and give you great product. And so, there's quite a bit. And I think, in my journey, I'm looking at that model, but also recognizing that there's still a need for upscale casual dining, where folks still want to go out, they want to have a good time, they want to entertain, they want to have great food and great, beverages, spirits. I'm still waiting for that cocktail over at your place. It's but yeah, no, it's a super interesting time. And I think for those that are getting into the business or want to get into it, I think you'd be wise to kind of just take a pause, definitely do a market survey, and make sure that you have all the information that you need.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been concerned with the labor force in the restaurant industry, because, as you mentioned, a lot of folks did leave the industry as a result of COVID. But it's nice to hear that that's sort of coming back, that's sort of returning to a steady state.
It's coming back. I think that we lost a good amount of pros, which is sad, but it happens. I think in industries from time to time, there's changing of the guard, and so that's happening. And it's we're in a period of retraining, re-upping everything that we do, and it's okay. I've come into a mentorship role. I enjoy teaching as much as I do cooking, and so. Yeah, it's all good. And initially it was a little whoa, where's everybody at?
But it's calmed down a bit.
It's calmed down. Yes.
Well, listen, Chef, you've been so generous with your time. My final question: what would your 18-year-old self think about the person you are today?
Oh, wow. I think my 18-year-old self would be pretty shocked of where I'm where I've what I've done, where I've landed, what I've accomplished. My 18-year-old self was bit of a wild card, bit of maybe maybe a little selfish at the time, but lacked direction. That guy was like, he was well, I don't know. He made it.
You've just described 90% of the 18-year-old males in this country.
I think you're right on. And I have a 16-year-old here in my home, and yeah, I'm working on like, trying to get him on the other side quicker than I got. But yeah, it's been a journey, and it's been one that's been filled with fun, adventure, some success, some failure, but all is good. I'm happy to be here with you today and describing all of it. So yeah, no complaints, Dennis, on this.
Well, listen, Jose, this has truly been a pleasure. I want to thank you for all that you do in terms of bringing us this tremendous art, in terms of the culinary experience that we get from your restaurants, your commitment to community, and what you're trying to do with the immigrant population. This podcast, Here for Good, is all about people that are doing things that inspire not only me, but others to make a difference. And so thank you for taking the time to talk with me. It's always a pleasure to see you, to talk with you, and to dine with you. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Here for Good. I truly enjoyed our conversation with Chef Jose Garces, and I look forward to our upcoming episodes.